Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Organizing with Ease. If this is your first time tuning in, you're in for a treat. I'm your host, Deanna Mall, and today's episode is one you won't want to miss. As we move from the laid back days of summer into the morning structured rhythm of fall, many of us are feeling the shift in our routines, schedules, and priorities. With the demands of the new season in full swing, staying organized and mindful becomes more important than ever. To help us navigate these changes with ease and purpose, I'm thrilled to welcome two very special guests, Kelly Fox and Jessica Colarco, the inspiring sister duo behind Chasing Brighter. For those of you who might not be familiar with Chasing Brighter, it is an incredible platform that guides you in making midlife your best life. Through their podcast and blog, Kelly and Jessica bring a wealth of knowledge, sharing inspiring stories and expert interviews and practical tips on how to thrive in midlife. Whether it's about rediscovering your passions, enhancing your well being, or bringing more joy into your daily life, Chasing Brighter is a go to resource for anyone looking to live fully and intentionally. Kelly and Jessica, welcome to Organizing with Ease. I am so excited to hear you discuss how mindfulness can play a pivotal role in helping us transition smoothly into the fall.
We are
We're
very
so
excited to be here.
I know,
yes.
right? So to kick things off, I'd love to hear from the both of you. How has mindfulness personally impacted your approach and your changes in your own lives?
I think first it's important to kind of talk about what mindfulness is and what mindfulness isn't. And,
Okay.
mindfulness is just a practice of being fully engaged in the current moment, being aware of your thoughts, feelings, sensations without judgment. And there's so many benefits. Reducing stress, improving your focus, enhancing emotional regulation. And it's not just like for people to sit and meditate for an hour with a blank mind, right? And
Right.
so it's not time consuming,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
something that takes hours.
I think
hours.
for myself personally, I struggle with anxiety and I didn't really know what that was so much until I had kids, especially. But I think for me personally, mindfulness has really helped me stay calm and grounded. It's easy in really stressful moments to kind of lose yourself a bit. And it's hard to kind of muddle through that without finding a different way to sort of find a calmness and a common ground. And I think practicing mindfulness, like Jesse said, in a myriad of different ways, it doesn't have to be a one size fits all, has really helped me.
Yeah, and I think for me personally, we grew up in a house where there was maybe kind of like a lot of chaos and a lot of emotions, strong emotions. And
Mhm.
so I think for me, it's that emotional regulation piece. Particularly, I was carrying on maybe kind of volatility into my early marriage, early parenting. And with mindfulness, it's like I can just be present and I can notice, oh, I'm feeling overwhelmed, right? I can take a step back and notice I'm feeling overwhelmed. What's this about? What's happening here? And it kind of gives me that buffer of not just reacting to things and just kind of being in the moment and noticing without having to kind of jump in and just react.
Yeah, I think you just took the key that you actually noticed it before, right?
Mhm.
Like you take note of it and then you're like, okay, so now I'm gonna take action now and I'm gonna work on that. But I actually want to go back to how you actually said that the mindfulness doesn't take an hour. And I think that's also a misconception by a lot of people that
Hmm.
they think that it has to be a certain amount of time. Is that what you all get as well? Like there's that preconception of like, oh my gosh, I don't have the time for it because you're supposed to do it for like, an hour. Is that your same feeling
A
with how people
100%.
react?
In fact, one of the mindfulness practices that I've started to do a lot more recently because I changed my mindset about it is journaling. So,
Hmm.
journaling, I feel like I used to see it as like this, it's a quiet morning and you're pulling it out and you're going to spend 30, 45 minutes journaling. No, I quit that, and I've done that, and it's overwhelming for myself to stay. And now I'm writing a couple sentences. I'm just having a cup of coffee, and I'm just thinking about things, and I'm just kind of doing this stream of consciousness. And I learned that from a colleague who was like,
Hmm.
he's like, you got to journal, and I was like, what are you doing? And he showed me what he did, and it was kind of just fun and exploring how other people are doing it. But I realized, and I think through the fault of my own, because I get to analysis paralysis kind of person where I want to do everything the way you're supposed to. And I've just kind of gone with the flow of it. And it really helped kind of changing that practice and that idea of what journaling is.
Yeah, those brief encounters are important. I have a meditation I listen to that's just under 8 minutes, right? Just
Mhm.
7.5 minutes of my day,
Yeah.
even just box breathing. You're breathing in a count, holding a count, breathing out a count, holding a count. You could do 3 rounds of counts of three, right? Those are just simple things, just a few minutes, because mindfulness is accessible to everyone.
Yep, it's so true. And I'll do the box method while I'm in the car so that I can just like process if there's like any like erratic driver. Here in the 305, we have some like crazy drivers. So that breathing kind of like calms me while I drive. While I'm
Yeah,
at the
me
stoplight and
too.
I kind of like take that into consideration. I just keep on going, right? You just have to like because there's madness. It's like after school
Hmm.
activities, the kids are back in school, right? It's like
Yeah.
the world is just becoming busier. And it's
Hmm.
just the focus really is on the mindfulness. And when you're doing that transition, really it's also important from like the summer to the fall, because that is a
Yeah.
transition as well. Do you not see that as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I think part of just naturally from summer to fall is this change from a kind of fun summer freedom and just it being nice outside. And there's a lot more activities to do in a lot of ways and a lot more things going on to fall where things start to change. And obviously, back to school, especially for us who are parents, it certainly changes our routine, right? So it
Yeah.
gets a lot busier. There's a little bit more freedom because there's no bedtimes, there's no homework. And then you come into fall and you've got homework and bedtimes and activities and still trying to carry on your summer. I think that's maybe the transition gets harder because you're still trying to like get through your summer bucket list on top of all these other things. And so it does get a lot more chaotic.
Yeah, and I think it increases anxiety and brings on melancholy, right? Also, the days get shorter, and then the anxiety and stress with the picking up of fall schedules and practices and homework and projects and all of that kind of stuff.
So how do you personally take on that shift of the energy? Like how do you do that? Like so that you can become productive even with the change of the seasons. Do you have like a tip for the listeners?
We really recommend building a fall routine. And that
Okay.
can be a lot of different things. I thrive in a routine. I don't know about you, Kel, do you thrive in a routine, would you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so
We
it's
love
like, yes,
routines. Routines
yeah,
are awesome. Routines are
Yes.
awesome. I love them.
it's
I love them.
harder to get up, right? I don't like getting up at that 6 a.m. in the fall. But then it's just, I know for me, the kids are gone. And so then I have a lot more opportunity to engage in some self-care. And so we really encourage just starting with that morning ritual, right? And like you were talking about, Deanna, that mindful commuting, right? Use your travel time, observe your surroundings. You can listen to calming music at that time. There's a great podcast I love called Wake Me Up, and she gets you out of bed and gets you in maybe about 20 minutes. And I, even though, we don't meditate while we're operating heavy machinery, I listen to it sometimes when I'm driving, just to kind of begin a day of gratitude and
Mhm.
thinking, okay, like you can get in there, like, he cut me off, that car's going too fast, and it's like kind of getting out of that and just kind of pulling back a little bit.
I think the fun part about coming into fall is similar to moving from winter to spring is this idea for me of like organization. And I
Okay.
know Deanna, we talked to you a couple weeks ago about it. I think this is a great time to get organized.
Hmm.
Things do get chaotic, so not only are you having those routines, but reestablishing or being more consistent in your systems that you have to stay
Hmm.
organized, so that you're not frantically running out of the door, forgetting things when you've already got this busy schedule. So I think in a lot of ways that helps for me in mindfulness is also knowing that I have a calm home.
No, that's
Yeah,
true. Yeah, it's true. No, 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 it really is.
and you can mindfully let go of those things, right? If when you transition into seasons, it can be a time to simplify and declutter, right?
Mhm.
And so mindfully let go of things that aren't serving you anymore. You can really incorporate mindfulness into decluttering.
Deanna,
Yes,
we
it's a
loved all
it's a
of your
beautiful.
advice when we talked to you. It's just,
Oh,
again, I think we love the idea of ease of organization, right? Again,
yeah.
trying to make everything a simple way, because I think a
Mhm.
lot of us are so hard on ourselves in what we're
Yes,
trying
we
to
are
do.
so hard on ourselves. And again, we are our worst critics. We judge too hard.
Mhm.
And I actually wanted to say that it's taken me personally a while to get into journaling and also doing meditation. So I've actually incorporated that in my own personal schedule, but
That's
it didn't
wonderful.
happen overnight. Like I have to
Mhm.
share that with you. Then so I like how you said, doing it at your own pace and making it happen. So I typically do it at night, but if I don't finish it or I don't even get to do it, I'll try to do it in the morning real quick before everyone wakes up. That's like my quiet time.
I
Yeah, I
love
think
that.
that's great. Just finding a time, right? Morning,
Mhm.
midday, evening, finding what's best for you to engage. And I was
Mhm.
definitely one of those people that would say, "Oh, I'm just not a person that can meditate. That's not me. I can't quiet my mind. That's not
Okay.
something
Yeah.
I can do." And
Mhm.
so you're right. Uh, it takes time and giving
Takes-
yourself grace and trying. I read this book. I can't think of what it's called, but it was written by Gandhi's grandson. And he said that Gandhi used to say, um, like, look at a picture and then close your eyes and hold that picture in your mind. And then once it disappears, that's okay. And then keep practicing. And
Mhm.
soon you'll be able to hold that picture in your mind longer and longer and longer. So I think about that too. It's like, okay, I try to meditate. It was 30 seconds. I'm over it. I can't, I'm done. Okay. And then you keep trying and then that can grow to where
Right.
Kelly and I have done over hour-long meditations, and
Oh,
so, but it does start, okay, it's 30 seconds. I
That's
tried
why it's
today,
a
you know?
practice.
it's a
Yeah.
It's
practice.
something that you keep
Yes.
working at.
Yes. And mindfulness can also be looked at differently for everyone because it depends on their own lifestyle. Right?
Hmm.
100%.
Would you, right? Because I think everybody's lifestyle is just so different. But if you have the mindfulness and the practices, I think you could possibly make that work in everyone's routines,
Yeah, you can
right?
do mindful
Mhm.
eating. Or I was even thinking, because we're talking about fall and transitions. I was
Okay.
thinking I like to uh with mindful eating, put pumpkin puree, just literally put pumpkin puree in my coffee.
Okay.
And then I can sit right and it makes it my pumpkin flavored
Yep.
latte. And then I
Okay.
can just sit and have that and enjoy it. It's cooler outside, sit outside.
Mhm.
And so there are simple little things that you can do where you just are kind of, savoring flavors during fall.
Right. Yes. And it's the cinnamon and
Yeah, that's awesome. I
what,
love that.
like the pumpkin that you mentioned, apple cider. I mean, I don't know. So
Mhm.
here in the 305, we don't get to, I guess we could treat ourselves to some of those spices.
Iced
But we would, I
lattes.
mean, we could possibly do our own way of winter like. I mean, but we do
Hmm.
so that we could feel that, fall season change and the winter approaching. So I just laugh because we're still in hurricane season. So, there you have it till the end of
Yeah. Oh,
November. So yeah, so it's just kind of like,
We're in
but
heat
do you,
advisory in September in
oh, you
Vegas.
are?
But that,
Really? You have a
yes,
heat
but
advisory?
yes, but that's okay. Like let tell you what, right? With mindfulness, we learn that, right? Your mind can create your reality. So
Yes,
if
that
I
is
fill
so
my
true.
house with pumpkins, then
You
it's
go right
fall.
ahead. And then you know
That's
what? You
right.
go right ahead because everyone that walks into your home will be so happy that they did. Right? They will be so happy that you did. They're so for sure, for sure. Do you have any tips or ways for anybody that's like a stay home, a stay home mom or even like a busy professional or any of those empty nesters? Is there anything for mindfulness on any roadblocks that you might, or have you had patients or clients that have had that you could share any of their stories and how they've overcome that so that they can become mindful so that they can go and continue on in their lifestyles.
I think for me, in terms of practicing mindfulness, I don't do the same thing every day.
Okay.
And I think in terms of adopting a routine, maybe I'm doing the same thing I have like a short list of things, the ways in which I practice, but every day it's different.
Okay.
But I'm a person of routine where I am practicing mindfulness. That is the routine, but how I'm doing that regularly is different. Um, I think finding the calm, finding a moment, a quiet calm, whatever that means, and not putting a label on it in a way that it's like, oh, I'm doing X, I need to do that. Like if you're watering flowers in a quiet moment of the day, or just these moments where even if you are doing something, but there's a quietness about it. Um, I even the other day I went to the gym and I forgot my headphones, and I was like, "Oh my god, what am I doing?" But there was this weird quiet thing about just doing my own thing without any noise, too.
Mhm.
And I
I
think
don't guess.
if you're an at-home parent or working from home, I think getting out in nature. Kelly's talked a lot before about nature walks. Kelly is really good at what's that called when you recognize the leaves and the plants. And right, Kelly, that's an interest. I feel like when we've got a nature hike, you're like, oh, isn't that
I
mint
have this
or
weird
an
obsession
oak
with
leaf? Or
trees.
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And and so it's like, going on a nature walk. If you have to have the kids with you, I've done before, I printed out like a bingo card or whatever, with like an acorn and a pine cone and whatever. And I used it to get my kids out of the house and excited when I would want to get fresh air. So if you can get out or even just sitting outside and, nature can be really healing. So for people at home, I think for people who, maybe are commuting, like we talked before about trying to make that really purposeful. I
Yeah.
like Tibetan singing bowls, like the sound immersion. You can find, the audio and listen to that in your car. And we already talked about box breathing.
Yes.
There are a lot of different grounding techniques that can help us. A grounding technique I like to kind of bring us down to is a couple of them to kind of get your brain going if you feel like you have a lot of stress and anxiety, counting backwards from 100 by sevens.
Oh, okay.
Um,
That's a good one. I like that one.
Categories and lists. Like I'm gonna list in my head, every movie I ever saw. I'm gonna list all the kinds of cereals I know. And then finally 5 4 3 2 1 grounding technique, which is very mindful. So it's you think of the five senses. I tell my clients it doesn't matter if you mix them up and you but it's like five things, identify five things you can see, four things you can touch, three things you can hear, two things you can smell, and one thing you can taste. And if you do it in different order, that's fine too. But like with the smelling and the tasting, that's good to have gum with us, mints with us. That can help us be mindful of just focusing on the flavor, or like with the senses, having aromatherapy oils around, and then you can kind of focus on that sense. And we can even do grounding exercises, pick something up, oh, this is my pen, it's black, it has a pointy tip, and just describing it to yourself. All of those are grounding and mindful exercises we can do that are really quick, especially if we're really a busy person.
And those are actually easy to do. Like even
Hmm.
like you just said, you like the counting the backwards by seven. It's not like you have to have something to make it happen. You can do it
Right.
on your own.
Hmm.
Right? Right. You just have, and so what you just gave was amazing. And what I just love about your podcast, Chasing Brighter, is how you focus on the midlife is definitely your best life. And I just think that
Yes.
that's just amazing, and how what you share. But I also like how you go into the books. And when you do your books and you review them, you really are the best book critics ever. Like, I just so love that because you're honest about it and you actually go through and you highlight the pros and the cons and how that works in someone's life. And that you don't hear
Yeah,
that often. So I actually want to say thank you, because you recommended a couple. So I'll be, taking on
Oh,
some notes later on. But
that's
is there a
great.
book now that you could recommend to one of our listeners and we can talk about it?
yeah, we got a couple books, Kel.
Oh,
You know, I think one of my favorites more recently is The Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes, especially for middle-aged women. All of us going through our own journey, and just hearing her, listening to her talk. reading as she talks, but I loved her advice. And, it just really resonated with how she grew up and how she views, family and career and just navigating through life. I thought she had a lot of really great advice. And it was about this idea of saying yes to things. A lot of us, we come up with these preconceived ideas of things and they hold us back. And so it's
Okay.
like, what are ways that we need to just push through that stuff that's holding us back?
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yes.
like that. Yes. Okay, so it's more of saying the yes instead of saying the no. It's more of saying the yes so that you
Yeah,
can move because
correct.
you're moving forward, right? You're
Yes.
moving
Yeah.
forward as opposed to going backwards because we want to. We want to continue our lives. We want to move forward in our life. And so that's actually very inspirational. I like that because a lot of people wouldn't think about that. They would think differently.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in regards to kind of mindfulness, uh, Wherever You Go, There You Are by John Kabat-Zinn. He's kind of given credit for bringing mindfulness to the States. He brought it in the 70s. And he has access, even on YouTube, you have access to a lot of his meditations. But he's a great person to go to if you want to kind of get your feet wet and begin a journey of mindfulness.
Is
That's a
he
good
one of your favorites? You can
I was
tell. You can tell.
well, I was introduced to him a long time ago. I took
You
a
were.
training on
Okay.
mindfulness, and one of the things that I guess the aha moment from him was just when he says your mind wanders, just notice it and let it come back. And I just think for me, I was really judgy, like we are talking about,
Yeah.
oh, my mind wanders, I can't do this. This is too
Mm-hmm.
hard. The end. But about like just being curious and noticing it, and that's okay. I really like that.
Oh, I like that a lot too. I do. I like that a lot because we actually do that. We probably do that more than we actually want to admit.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that true? Right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's true. I mean,
100%.
and it's okay to acknowledge it and it's okay to say, listen, it happens to me because at the end of the day, it happens to all of us. And so for those,
Yes.
I would think that say that that never happens, then they have an issue. I mean, I don't know. Would
Yeah,
you,
right. Well,
right?
like you were saying before, just noticing it and not the judgment.
Mhm.
Like on my bracelet, I made one similar, I think, for you, Kelly, but I wear a bracelet and the beads say flow. And it just reminds me, like, let it come, let it go, let it flow. Like it's gonna come. So,
Right.
like, judging yourself because something came and you have a reaction, you have feelings, isn't gonna get you anywhere. But it's like, let it, notice it, let it be there, and see if you can kind of let it go and let it flow.
Yeah, yeah. I think my this is just my personal take, but I would think that a lot of people have a hesitation on letting go because they're afraid. Is that something that you possibly have seen? Is that like the one of the main is that the major roadblock is what I'm saying? Is
I
that they're
think
just
so.
afraid. They're afraid to let go because they're not sure. It's like that unknown territory.
It's like there's the hold on to something that it like is some sort of power over them. And we all have it. I have it, in any given moment where I think the cool thing about like doing a long meditation, Jesse and I have done these like 1 hour meditations for a while, and it really took a long time to work up to it. But when you're done with those moments, there's this freeing aspect where things are less weighty and we give everything a lot of weight and we get really wrapped up into something, right? Like, oh my gosh, my kid needs to get all A's so they can get into this school or that school. And that's not on you or whatever. And like how to let these things go that you can't necessarily control and you think you have to and you think you can, well, if I don't do this, what's going to happen? You kind of go through this whole mental thing instead of like just letting things go and letting the world work out the way that it needs to work out. And I think our generation has a really hard time with that for whatever reason. I think a lot of it is just maybe we held on having kids later in life. We started a career, we have a lot more control, and letting go of that control is hard.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think noticing whether something's serving you, I love there's a guided meditation, the one I talked about earlier, that short. It says, is there anything hanging on from the day before? And so I like to try to think about
Mm,
that. And then she
Mhm.
says, let it go, let it flow and be recycled through the earth. And something about that just clicked for me. And Kelly and I used to do all of these things when we were young with 4-H and recycling. We used to give talks about recycling. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, I love that idea of just like, oh, okay, it's going to be used in a different way. So I can let that go. And that energy is going to go somewhere else and be used in a positive way. So that kind of helps me. And then also for me, what I have a hard time letting go of a lot, particularly in the past, has been resentment.
Okay.
And the blame game. And I read something or heard something that they said resentment is drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And so I was
Ouch.
like, oh,
That's,
yeah,
oh,
right.
ouch.
That you're just
Ouch.
hurting yourself, right? You're
Oh,
just hurting. You are not serving yourself by holding
no.
on to these things, right? And you can let that go,
Mhm.
and that can go somewhere else. And you can let in something new that's better that will serve you.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. And what about our kids? Like, do you think that they could start doing mindfulness as well? Like, is there a certain age, or do you think this is only for like, you know, 25 and above, or for the age group? Do you think
Oh
kids
no,
can actually
always,
do
totally. Like the grounding,
totally?
five,
Yes.
four, three, two, one grounding I used when I had a kid who was having a tantrum.
Okay.
Very little, very little. And I was like, let's see 5 things you can see. And then it got them totally off, whatever they were screaming about. I know it's one of the things that's going around for whatever reason. I had not heard this before until recently, but smell the roses, blow out the candles. Have you both
Okay.
heard that? For
Mm-mm.
breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. So particularly with
Ah,
a lot,
okay.
and there's
Yes,
Really
all
in and
different
out.
smaller
Yes,
kinds
the
of
kids.
in and the out. Okay, yes,
breathing, and
in
I'm
and out.
trying to read the book Breathe. I have that book in my queue for Audible, but there's all different kinds of ways we can breathe. But really, for activating the parasympathetic nervous system, it's in through the nose and out through the mouth. And
Mhm.
so it's like, yeah, just teaching kids very young. I would try to hold them, and to me, when my kids were little, and I would say, breathe, do what I'm doing, breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. But I love this new one I heard of smell the roses, blow out the candles. So that's something that a very young child can understand, just the breath.
Yeah, I think if anybody has Alexa, any Amazon Echoes or whatever, they do a 1, 2, 3 minute meditation. So I have trained my kids when they need a moment of calming to just say like, Alexa, do a 1 minute meditation, and it'll do that. So that's for them learning to calm. And I think the breathing exercises are really good. And for my kid who's my youngest son's really competitive. And so sometimes if I notice he's having a hard time winding down in the evening, um, like before bed, we will have a competition of how long it takes you to breathe in and then how slowly it takes you to breathe out. And so it totally changes his view of what he's doing. And then it really works. I find for both of my kids, um, five five really deep breaths and breathing out is like the sweet spot of where they start to kind of reset their mind. And especially for times like with school starting or a lot of anxious moments going on right now, I think just doing that and learning for them to do that can hopefully help stick with them. I don't know,
Well,
Deanna. I
yeah.
mean, you've got your older girls too.
Yeah, no. So I used to do the five. I did the 5 to 1. Like, so I did
Okay.
that concept.
Hmm.
Sometimes it stopped at like 3 and then 2, and but there were times where we went into 0, but then we stopped. Or, we had those moments. But yes. But no, I actually did it along with them
Yeah.
Yeah.
just to
Yes.
get them started. So I don't know. Did you do that, or you still do that as well, just to show them
100%.
how it works?
Yes.
Like, so that was with me. So I did that with them. And then when I started the 5, then because it was like a repetitive, right? And they
Hmm.
knew how it was, how it would go. Then they did it on their own. But I did it initially with them. And then I actually still did it internally with me, because there was just something that made me also calm
Yes.
inside.
Yeah. I agree.
And there's also a great thing just because I was talking about parasympathetic nervous system and we did a reel on it, but just legs up the wall. It's a yoga pose where you lay on your back and put your legs up the wall.
Mhm.
I used to do a lot of like nighttime yoga with my kids when they're little to wind them down and to do stretching. And we've talked about this on our podcast a lot, but I think these new generation, like Gen Z, I feel like is already operating at a higher vibrational level.
Yes.
Like they're much more in tune to that. Our
Yes.
boys went away to baseball camp together and they were 12 years old. And do you remember, Kelly, they called us and they couldn't sleep. And so I bought like an Audible like meditation or something that then Dominic had access to, and then they listened to it for like an hour. And but it was just so funny to me that they were receptive to it. And then they called back and they were still like, we can't sleep. But then they tried and they listened to it. And I mean, I can't even imagine when I was 12 if my mom would have said, listen to a meditation. I've been like, what the hell are you
Yeah.
talking about? But it's just like, I think they're more receptive.
They
I
are.
think they're a little bit more spiritual. And so I think there's no reason why you can't, teach them any of these skills
Mhm.
that unfortunately that's what Kelly and I talk about all the time. That's why we have Chasing Brighter, because our generation is midlife and we're like,
Right.
oh, what's
Right. Midlife.
mindfulness?
Yes.
Right. Is
Like,
that right?
oops,
Now for
so
the kids though, do you have like a recommended meditation app that you think works for
you
the
know
kids?
what I did for my kids is we have an Oculus, the VR virtual
Mhm.
reality headset.
Okay.
And you can do meditations. Let me see if I can find the exact meditation that we have. There's an app called Trip, TRIPP.
Okay.
And Trip goes with our Oculus Quest. And there are all different kinds of meditations, and it's very visual. And so it will have you almost kind of making like a game, and it shows the particles. So when it wants you to breathe in, it has these particles, like you're supposed to breathe in the particles and breathe out the particles. And then there's a kind of a game where you um, try to like get the coins with your breathing. And so I did have my kids do that. It was part of one of our, when we have summer, it's like you have to do these things before, you can have access to your electronics.
Yes.
And so
Mhm.
even though
Right.
that is electronic, I was like, you have to meditate for 10 minutes with
That's
the
really cool.
Oculus. And then they were kind of doing that. And then I even have brought the headset into work with clients because it's a visual to help us learn about breathing. But I think that's a great one.
I love that one. That's great.
That is good. I wish we had that growing up. That's
Yeah.
actually
Yeah, wouldn't that
cool.
have been cool?
Wouldn't that
Mhm.
have been really cool? Right?
Yeah.
Our kids are so, I think they're bringing what we had, like the basics. We had
Yeah.
like the basics that still work. Don't get me wrong, right? But now they've taken that and they brought it to another level that we've never even in a million years would ever have dreamt that would have ever
Yeah.
existed,
Well, and it's
right?
so interesting because was it you, Kelly, that sent me that there was a comedian talking about mindfulness? And he was like, all we had was mindfulness. We were laughing when you play the game sitting in the car and you would race, the raindrops down the window. Like right, there was nothing to do. Like there was
That was
nothing to
really
do when we were kids.
mindfulness in
So
hindsight.
it is mindfulness. Like we had a
Yes.
lot of sitting and staring and a lot
Being
more
bored. Yes.
downtime. And so I think now it is important that we're more intentional and showing and guiding our children because they have way less quiet time. Like, and I know we've gotten used to it. Kelly, same with me. I forgot my headphones the other day at the gym, and I was just, I'm sorry. What am I supposed to do without having something in my ear? And so we all have a hard time being quiet now, and so we have to create opportunities now.
Yes. But at a different level, which I think is not too bad. It keeps us on our toes, right? To see what
Yeah.
what actually would work, like what level, right? Like now
Mhm.
there's all these different levels to work with, which I think it makes it even more. I think because there's so many other ways that we can now go there through that mindfulness, I think we can experience a lot more to see what really works for us
Yes.
because
Yeah.
not everything works for us, right?
Yes.
Hmm.
I totally agree.
So
And
I think that
yeah,
that's kind of nice.
and it's just like Kelly was saying, it's a practice, right? It's not perfection. And we can integrate it in small, consistent ways that fit our lifestyle. And we don't know if we don't try. And then we're
Right.
like, okay, that didn't work. Let me try something else.
Right. So for the trying though, what do you suggest? Like at least like because a habit and the lifestyle is like 2 weeks and 90 days, but do you
Mhm.
consider that to become part of the habit and the lifestyle? So like 2 weeks and give it 90 days, or do you have like different time frames for this to make it stick, so to speak? Or don't give up is what I'm saying. Like don't give up. Like not like, you did the 3 seconds and you're like, yeah, I'm done. But so like how often? Like what would you recommend?
I
I think
think,
we like you to try something daily, Kel.
yeah, that's what I mean. I think you need to do something every day.
Hmm.
Okay, every
And
day.
it's a simple practice and it can be whatever you want it to be. I think you start with a minute And I think to Jesse's point, the idea is something that will kind of like hold your attention and bring you the calm.
Mhm.
And, any of us who have an Apple Watch, there's a 1 minute breathing app on that. So there's a lot of resources. There's apps you can install. There, like, I think Fitbit even has something. But also just sitting in the calm, quiet, sitting out in nature, just kind of making it a priority, and then growing that over time. But also, again, it's an idea of fitting it in the nooks and crannies of your day. Like you were saying, Deanna, you like to do stuff in the kind of in the end of the day.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of people tend to do the practices right end of the day or in the morning. Jess and I used to, we kind of got out of that routine because we got busy. We were doing a 1 hour Monday meditation together in the middle of the day. And it was kind of nice because in some ways on Mondays, your Mondays get hectic.
Mhm.
But if you take that mid morning or middle of the day moment, kind of like regrounding you, and then it helped kind of set you for success for the rest of the week. So again, it's about trying different tactics and figure out what works for you.
And also, I think a guided meditation is helpful versus just, you know, trying to have a blank mind, like maybe having someone guide you through it. And meditation coach
Mhm.
Tara Brach is wonderful. She has a
Mm-hmm.
podcast, TaraBrach. She's a
Mm-hmm.
meditation coach. She has her PhD in psychology. She's really incredible. Um,
And she has like
also,
her meditations are all different lengths, all different
yes.
topics.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, she's got hundreds of episodes on her podcast that you can kind of
Yes.
access for
And I
free.
think YouTube is great. I tell my clients, I go to YouTube, like you could look up meditation for stress, meditation for mothers, meditation for entrepreneurs. Like put it in YouTube and you will find something in there. And there was one I listened to and it was supposed to also be like hypnosis or something. And he said, even if you fall asleep, it's okay. It will still work. Right. So just again, giving yourself grace, it's okay. Just the intention is so important.
Yeah. In fact, speaking of meditation for every shape and size, I usually recommend this to my clients right before I'm a consultant. So right before we do sort of major project go live. But there's a meditation. It's called Honest Meditation. It's NEST meditation. It's filled with a lot of expletives and it has a 2, 5, 10, and 15 minute. It's Jason Heedley. He also has a YouTube channel and they are hilarious. If you're at a point where you're like frustrated with people and I'll be like, F this is BS. And I'll be like, breathe in, breathe out, F that. And so it's really hilarious. And for a lot of us who might find that a little cathartic in moments of our lives, I think, again, that's why there's something
That's
for
great.
everyone.
Yeah.
And well, we have to laugh in all of this.
Yes.
You have to laugh, right? Because if you're too
100%.
serious, I mean, I don't know about you, but then it gets like really intense sometimes when you
Yeah.
Oh,
want to be
yeah.
like relaxed,
Yes.
right? When it gets like really intense. So I like that one. So that you said that was Jason
Heedley.
Headley, Headley. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So yeah, I mean, because you have to lighten it, whether it's the effing day or the like whatever type of a day it is,
Yes.
right? You
Yeah.
just kind of have to let that go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. That's absolutely amazing. Oh my gosh. Well, I have to say thank you to the both of you. You have just inspired us all, and I hope that you'll come back again. Maybe we can do like another change of season.
Oh, that'd
I
be
would love
great.
to have
That's
you
a good
back
idea.
again. Thank you again so much for sharing your wisdom. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. And to our listeners, be sure to check out Chasing Brighter for more inspiration on how to make midlife your best life. To our listeners, be sure to check out Chasing Brighter for more inspiration on how to make midlife your best life. Well, in the show notes, we will share with you how you can still continue to stay connected with Jessica and Kelly. Until next time, remember to stay organized, stay mindful, and enjoy the season ahead.